Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. You guys have been asking about this one for a while, and we're finally here, digging into advanced conversational hypnosis.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating approach.
And, we've been looking at a lot of the traditional stuff, too.
Right. Ericksonian hypnosis, NLP, all of that.
And it turns out one of the most surprising things, and I think this might surprise a lot of you listening, is that how deep you go into a trance. It might not be the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a common misconception, isn't it?
It really is.
And I think, those stage hypnosis shows with people clucking like chickens,
Oh, yeah.
forgetting their names, that kind of thing, it creates a powerful visual.
It does. It really does.
But it doesn't necessarily translate to therapeutic change.
So that's what we're going to get into today, right?
Exactly. Separating fact from fiction.
So if it's not about going under, what are we actually aiming for in hypnosis?
Well, the real key is engaging the unconscious mind effectively.
So even light trances can lead to breakthroughs.
Absolutely, if done right.
Okay, so let's talk about ericksonian hypnosis then.
Yeah, so that's a method that often uses these convincers, as we call them.
Convincers, okay.
Yeah, things like arm levitation or suggestibility tests.
But what's the point of those if they don't actually guarantee any real change?
That's the problem. They can distract from the real goal,
Which is
helping the client achieve lasting change in their lives.
So that's where advanced conversational hypnosis comes in, right?
Exactly. It's about moving beyond those limitations.
Focusing on actual results.
Yes, testing real breakthroughs during the session itself.
So you're making sure the changes are actually sticking.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And clients might experience the shift subtly, feeling different, lighter.
And it's about that real change, not just the show of going deep.
That's the key difference.
Okay, so it's not about how deep you go.
Oh,
It's about how effectively you engage the unconscious mind.
absolutely.
I like it, I like it. And that's what we'll be exploring more deeply today.
Awesome. Can't wait. So we've been talking about how advanced conversational hypnosis is really about getting results.
Yeah, less about the depth of the trance, more about real change.
And one of the ways it does that is by working with the client's natural state of trance,
Oh, interesting.
instead of trying to force them into some deep artificial state.
Like we see in those stage shows.
Right. Exactly.
So you're saying there are natural trance states?
Absolutely. We all experience them throughout the day.
Huh, like when?
Think about when you get lost in a good book.
Okay, yeah.
Or you're driving and kind of zone out a bit.
I do that all the time.
See, those are those subtle shifts in consciousness.
And you're using those as entry points into the unconscious.
Exactly. Working with the natural flow.
So it's less about creating this huge shift,
Right.
more about guiding their attention.
And that's where another key technique comes in.
What's that?
We call it unconscious leakage.
Unconscious leakage. Now that sounds intriguing.
It's basically those little clues that reveal what's going on beneath the surface.
Like what kinds of clues?
A slip of the tongue, maybe.
Oh.
A change in body language, a fleeting emotion.
So you're paying attention to those tiny details.
They can tell us a lot about the client's unconscious processes.
It's like being a detective almost,
Huh? Yeah, in a way.
looking for those subtle signs.
And by pointing those out to the client.
You're helping them understand themselves better.
Exactly.
And this seems pretty different from, like, the Ericksonian approach.
It is,
With all the structured techniques and scripts.
Right. Advanced conversational hypnosis is much more fluid.
More adaptable.
It's less about following a script, more about responding to the client's needs in the moment.
Though more personalized
Yeah, you could say that.
and intuitive.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's go back to that metaphorical regression thing.
Right. So that's a really powerful technique.
You mentioned it earlier
Yeah.
for dealing with past experiences.
Exactly. Especially those that might be contributing to current challenges.
The stuff that's holding them back.
And we use metaphors. Okay.
To create a safe distance.
From maybe some painful memories.
Right. Or deeply ingrained beliefs.
So it's a way to process those things without having to directly confront them.
That's the idea. It allows the client to explore those experiences on a symbolic level.
Makes it less threatening, I imagine.
Exactly. And it allows us to bypass the conscious mind's resistance.
Oh, that's interesting.
We can speak directly to the unconscious.
So instead of saying, think about this traumatic event,
Right.
you're creating a story around it.
A metaphor that allows them to process those emotions.
Wow, that's really powerful.
And through those metaphorical journeys, they can uncover hidden beliefs and patterns.
Those things that are driving the unwanted behaviors.
Exactly.
And this goes back to that root cause idea we were talking about.
It's all connected.
Because Ericksonian hypnosis, it might not always address that, right?
It can be great for inducing trance, for suggestibility.
But those changes might be temporary.
If you don't get to the root of the problem,
It's like trimming a weed. Exactly. It'll just keep growing back.
unless you get to the root.
That's what advanced conversational hypnosis is about, creating lasting change.
Okay, so to do all this, it sounds like you need a lot of trust between the therapist and client.
You absolutely do.
It's a very vulnerable process.
And that's where the conversational part really comes in.
So it's more than just the hypnotic techniques.
It's about building a genuine dialogue,
A real connection.
because ultimately, the client is the expert on their own experience,
So the therapist is more of a guide.
helping them tap into their own inner wisdom.
Okay, so how do you make sure those changes actually stick?
One of the key things we do is constantly test the results.
Oh, interesting.
We don't just assume something has shifted.
You're checking in with the client,
Throughout the session,
making sure they're seeing actual changes.
in their thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
Not just feeling hypnotized, but actually seeing progress.
Exactly, and we're constantly making adjustments as needed.
So there's a lot of flexibility in the approach.
A lot of responsiveness.
You're tailoring it to each client's journey.
That's what makes it so effective.
This is fascinating stuff.
It is, isn't it?
But I'm curious, why isn't this approach more popular?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
So we left off talking about why advanced conversational hypnosis isn't more, mainstream.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Why is that?
Well, I think one reason is just the history of hypnosis, right?
Like ericksonian hypnosis and all that.
Exactly. That's been the dominant force for so long.
So it's hard to break away from that,
It takes time, yeah, for new ideas to catch on.
especially when something's already so established.
And plus, advanced conversational hypnosis, it requires a whole different set of skills.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's not just about following a script.
Right. It's much more about intuition, flexibility, responding to the client in the moment.
And that could be challenging for therapists who are used to those more traditional methods.
Definitely. It's a whole new way of thinking about therapy.
And then there's the whole image thing too, right?
Yeah, traditional hypnosis with the deep trances, the dramatic demonstrations.
It's more like visually appealing.
It has a certain mystique, you know.
It's like a magic show almost.
Kind of.
But advanced conversational hypnosis, it's more subtle.
It's about those deeper, more lasting changes.
And those might not be as obvious on the surface.
But they're the ones that really make a difference in the long run.
it's like the difference between a quick fix and a real solution.
And I think that's where advanced conversational hypnosis really shines. It's about getting to the root of the problem.
And creating change that lasts.
And I think as more people experience that, they'll start to see the true power of this approach.
So it's just a matter of time before it becomes more widely accepted.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so for those listening who are intrigued by all this, where can they learn more about advanced conversational hypnosis?
Well, there are a few resources out there.
Okay.
Virginie, for example.
Oh, yeah, we mentioned her work earlier.
She offers some great training programs.
Awesome.
And there are books, articles, online communities too.
So there's a whole community of people exploring these ideas.
Definitely, and it's growing all the time.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive.
I've really enjoyed it.
I feel like I've learned so much about this approach.
Me too. It's been a great conversation.
And I hope everyone listening feels the same way.
And remember, the most profound changes often start with a shift in perspective.
That's a great takeaway. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
And keep exploring the power of your own unconscious mind. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.